Hello everyone, Zelrant here, and for today's video on Girls Frontline 2, we're going to be talking a little bit about Qiuhua, who is the next unit coming out for Global. Now this isn't going to be an entire overview of her kit, as I've already done that when she came out on CN, and it's kind of going to be how the rest of the units as they come out will be, since I've pretty much covered every unit at this point and continue to cover them as they come out for CN. But instead, we're going to focus on what I would consider her core components that really makes her really good, first of all, and the new knowledge we have based on new characters and new changes that have come out on CN that kind of is different than when we talked about her when she originally came out on CN. And so let's just go ahead and now take a look at what I would consider the most important parts of her kit. So there's two of them. The first one's going to be the fact that she has a Y support, or basically a support actions built into her kit. That's what the entire burn team is basically built around. She does Y support whenever whenever overburn is applied to an enemy, just like Sharkry. So what triggers Sharkry triggers Qiuhua. He does the Y support, dealing burn damage. Key thing being dealing burn damage, and because that gives her Confectance Index, which is great. Doing burn damage means Vector makes it where she can do additional support actions, and this gives her Confectance Index, which is quite important for her, one of her skills here. And so you have that. So by default, she can only do it one time. Vector, which you should have V1. If you don't, I would pull V1 Vector before you even think about pulling Qiuhua, because that just effectively triples the amount she can do support action wise right here. And so we have that. That was the one big thing we originally had that made her really good. At the time when she came out, Sharkry did not have her expansion key. And so she couldn't take advantage of Vector's passive that makes it you have additional support actions. So this is a big thing with Qiuhua on this Y support there. But the second part of her kit, Scorchmark, is what really can ramp up her damage, especially if you start going into getting multiple vertebrae of her or multiple dupes, especially all the way up to V6. And what Scorchmark is built into the ultimate, which has a cooldown of 3 turns. And this skill consumes all Confectance Index as well, which is another reason they're kind of important down here. You need it for skill 1, but it's more important for the ultimate because that does some damage right there. But then you also place out the Scorchmark. What Scorchmark is basically a debuff that goes on the enemy that does 7% attack on the enemy's turn. And this can stack up to 12 times. How you get stacks of this are through doing burn damage. And you can kind of see where this starts to really ramp up. QJ does burn damage, Sharkry does burn damage, Vector does burn damage, and QJ does burn damage. So all of them are, and they're all support actions, so they'll do multiple of them in a turn. And so you can, right now at V0, getting 12 stacks, super easy. Especially now that Sharkry has burn built into her support actions. Originally when Qiuhua came out, she did not. But now she does, and that was a huge upgrade to not only Sharkry but Qiuhua as well. Now that upgrade to Sharkry made Sharkry surpass a V0 Qiuhua for the simple fact of V6 Sharkry can do more damage than this because the Scorchmark is limited to 12 stacks. Well, that's the thing with Qiuhua. If you wanted to hyper invest in a character that can do a lot of damage, Qiuhua is one of those with a very big V3 and even more massive V6, and that is, and her V3, it gets rid of that cap. Now, originally Sharkry didn't have burn damage, so the cap, you could get over it, but not very easily. But now with Sharkry, you can easily get over it. And so V3 will just straight outright remove it. Plus, you have some other buffs in there, more support actions for Qiuhua from V2 and all that. So that's getting more stacks as well. But not having a limit means you can it just can keep going up and up and up. And this is good for even future. We may get future burn units that can do even more burn damage. So you add even more stacks. So that has potential. I don't think very much, but it has the potential in the future if we have someone that, I don't know, attacks 10 times in a turn. Think like a Peridia that has 10 support actions, but instead has burn. That can be massive right there because you can go over the stack limit, which was originally 12 and now it's gone. And it would be even bigger if you go all the way to her V6, because it changes it from a 7% damage per stack to 10. But the second part is 2 stacks per burn damage. And so if I remember correctly, you can get like over 30 plus stacks of this 10%. And so you're doing 300% plus amounts of damage as a burn unit. Now just imagine a Peridia that instead of doing corrosion damage, does burn damage and can do it 10 times. This can not only does a lot now, but can do a lot in the future. And so that is one thing that makes Qiuhua really good. Now here's the big negative with her. You need to go to V6 to get that kind of damage out of the Scorchmark. V3 is nice because you can get over 12, but it's not going to be too much more over 12 to really ramp up the damage. One, it's still 7%, and you can easily, it's not really going crazy. V6 is where it goes crazy because now you're getting the 2 stacks, which effectively gives it a 13% per burn type damage increase, because not only do you take it from 7 to 10, you double it to 20% per burn damage. So pretty massive on the V6. But the other big negative is, when you think about what the burn team currently is, you have QJ, free to play friendly. Pull on the support banner, you can get her all the way to V6 quite easily, especially if you've been playing since day one. Sharkry, same thing. She's an SR, the best SR in the game. Easy to have. Vector V1. If you don't have Vector V1, you're pulling Vector V1 before you pull Qiuhua, because that's like core to the entire burn team. You're not going to get stacks of Scorch without her increasing Sharkry's amount of support actions, QJ's amount of support actions, and Qiuhua's amount of support actions. So Vector's rerunning on this banner. If you don't have her V1, you want to pull her before Qiuhua. So those are huge. The second part is, those are all easy free to play to get. Qiuhua, on the other hand, really wants her V6 to maximize her damage. And guess what? She's only tied to the burn team. That Scorchmark is key to the burn team, so she's not flexible like, say, a QJ with her V6, where you can throw her anywhere and she does great. She only wants to be in the burn team, which means the one component where you're wanting to do as much damage as possible is Gunsmoke Frontline. You only need to use her once, which means she is a very, very good borrow unit. If you have a whale in your platoon that gets a V6 Qiuhua, guess what? That's going to be your borrow for the burn team. Done. If you have a Qiuhua yourself, you're not going to use her. You're going to borrow the V6. It's the same problem Lind has, not to as much of an extent. Lind is tied to the corrosion team, and she's a very good V6 borrow because she has insane damage alongside a V6 Qiuhua. Although I would get the V6 Qiuhua over Lind because it's more flexible. Same problem here. And so, meta purposes, I think she's a skip, even if you're hyper invested in the burn team, and instead borrowing on Gunsmoke Frontline, the highest dupe one that someone has. And if no one has a higher than V0, Qiuhua's, like I said, most platoons, any of the top ones, which they all have openings. If you need a platoon, mine currently has an opening. You should be able to find a platoon that has a V6 Qiuhua, which will do more for you than Qiuhua overall in terms of damage at V0. But as we've probably seen with her skin, when it comes to Dorm meta, she's quite insane on that, which is one reason why I get pretty much one copy of every single unit in this game, because that's just my overall goal now that I have my four teams built. You also have the other negative, which is burn has fallen off the meta. They're very good still on the CN side, but now with Elva, Ice has risen in terms of the amount of damage they've done. With Lind and Qiuhua, Corrosion's getting crazy, and Corrosion's probably got another unit coming at some point in the future to kind of finalize them, and they're going to be insane. And then Hydro is always been insane. You have Nikita, Flowance, and all of them. The Mono Hydro's doing good. And the next unit we're having coming up, which they've pretty much hinted at, is going to be the Qiuhua Physical on their next half, which I will be talking about next week when she comes out, I believe. So Physical could very well pass Burn. Doesn't mean Burn's bad. Burn's going to still be a great team. It's just, as the meta has shifted, Burn has just slowly moved down. Burn will get its next big unit that will probably elevate them. Who knows? We might see the Sharkry power creep for once. Something that finally takes the top SR and makes it truly an SR where you no longer want to use it in your team, potentially. I mean, you got Cinerisi, who you could probably just drop your healer for most fights, and now you have Sharkly alongside whatever the next one is. So you could see in the future Burn moving up, but they have fallen off a little bit. And so I think she's an easy skip unless you're into the Dorm meta type stuff on that capacity, and then you just borrow her, because she's really good as a borrow unit. But that's just kind of my thoughts. I'll probably go more into my thoughts on should you pull the day before release, because that's when I like to make that video. But that's it for now. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.